Hey guys, tonight we journey back, way back, to a time when gods were moody, sandals were groundbreaking technology, and celestial babies committed livestock crimes just for fun. You're walking through a meadow somewhere between myth and moonlight. The grass is whispering around your ankles, the stars blink like bored spectators, and there's an oddly familiar baby crawling toward a herd of cows. He's holding a tortoise shell, which, don't ask yet, will soon become a musical instrument. It's going to be a strange night. This story begins with the god Hermes. You've probably seen statues of him, wings on his sandals, a mischievous smile, abs sculpted by whoever invented marble. But what most people forget is that Hermes starts his life in a cave, born to Maia, a quiet mountain nymph who had a thing with Zeus. You know how it is, your dad's the king of the gods, your mom lives in hiding, and your birth takes, by mortal standards, like 15 minutes. So yes, tonight you'll be following a newborn. And no, you probably wouldn't survive this world for more than an hour. Not because of monsters or curses, though those do exist, but mostly because the gods have zero impulse control. One moment they're crafting lyres, the next they're committing divine cattle rustling. And unlike your baby cousin, Hermes doesn't nap. He's got things to do. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the stillness of Arcadia, remote hillsides, dry winds, the smell of thyme and animal dung on the air. The cave where Maia gives birth is a shadowy nest, barely enough room for a god baby and his future schemes. Hermes is born at dawn. By lunch, he's bored. Unlike most mythological children who take years to mature, or are just conveniently skipped forward to adulthood in the narrative, Hermes hits the ground crawling. He eyes a tortoise near the cave mouth and thinks, "Yep, that's mine now." You watch him scurry out, pluck the poor animal up, and hollow its shell with a smirk that only baby gods can get away with. From its innards and his mother's gut strings, gross but effective, Hermes creates the first lyre. Historians still argue whether this moment qualifies him as the first inventor or the first musical menace. Either way, the lyre becomes a hit. He strums a few notes, giggles at the sound, and then, naturally, decides it's time for Grand Theft Cow. There's something deeply absurd about watching a diapered deity slip through the underbrush in silence, looking for cattle. These aren't just any cows. They belong to Apollo, the sun god, whose musical reputation Hermes is about to outshine. It's a sibling rivalry waiting to ignite, though technically they're half-brothers, which in Olympian terms means practically strangers. To prepare for his heist, Hermes invents something new again. Shoes. More specifically, baby-sized sandals with leafy soles strapped on backwards, so that his footprints will look like they're heading the opposite direction. You crouch low, watching him tie them up with eerie precision. He's got a look in his eye that says, "I may be small, but I contain multitudes." When night falls, Hermes ventures out. The cows are grazing lazily by the riverbank. They blink at him, unimpressed. He waves a stick and whistles. Somehow this works. He leads them away, 95 glorious mooing, slightly confused animals, into the woods, deeper and deeper into his alibi. Here's the fun part. To throw off any suspicion, Hermes decides to sacrifice 2 of the cows to the gods. It's a classic Greek move: commit a crime, then bless it afterward. But he does it secretly, burning the bones and fat, hiding the evidence with all the guilty gusto of a kid caught in the cookie jar. Scholars still argue whether this sacrificial moment signals Hermes's early desire for divine legitimacy, or whether he just liked the smell of barbecue. Back at the cave, Maia is napping. You slip in just behind Hermes as he sets down his lyre and cuddles up in his little woven crib, wearing the expression of someone who has definitely done nothing illegal that day. His cheeks puff out in pretend snores. He's barely 12 hours old. The cave grows quiet again, but you can feel the tension buzzing like a fly trapped in honey. Apollo, currently unaware that his cows are doing unsanctioned cardio across the Peloponnesian hills, is about to wake up, and when he does, things will get melodramatic. There's something oddly comforting about this beginning, though. A tiny god doing questionable things with maximum flair, rewriting the rulebook of Olympus before he's even teethed. You feel yourself leaning into the rhythm of it, mythology as a bedtime lullaby, full of nonsense logic and lazy starlight. You close your eyes briefly, and in the distance, you think you hear a lyre being plucked, a single sweet note, echoing in the still night air like a wink from the gods. You barely have time to admire Hermes's criminal nap before the air around you shimmers. Somewhere off-screen, off mountaintop, Apollo wakes up and senses that something isn't quite right. There's a weird emptiness to his morning, as if the sunlight just isn't hitting quite right. Which makes sense, because a big chunk of his sacred herd is missing. Apollo doesn't exactly panic. That's not his style. He's the god of music, poetry, healing, archery, and let's not forget, predictable sunrises. He's used to things being orderly. Predictable. You can practically hear the note of disbelief in his voice as he counts his cows. 1, 2, 3, 93. Excuse me? A cow moos nearby. He narrows his eyes. You brace yourself. It's about to get dramatic. It doesn't take Apollo long to spot the footprints. And here's where Hermes's baby brain strategy comes into full effect. The tracks lead away from the scene of the crime, or so it seems. You hover over Apollo's shoulder as he squints at the ground, trying to calculate whether cows have suddenly learned how to moonwalk. Now, cows are not subtle creatures. Even if their hooves leave strange impressions, they tend to knock over shrubs, leave trails of dung, and chew conspicuously. Apollo follows the mess with growing irritation, his bow slung across his back in a way that says, I could solve this with arrows, but let's do it the civil way, for now. This whole scene might be less funny if it weren't for the fact that Apollo is, quite literally, chasing after baby footprints. You picture him stomping through the landscape like a detective in a toga, muttering things like, how does a newborn know stealth tactics? Or why do the cows look so smug? Historians still argue whether this entire myth was meant as a satire of divine pride. Apollo, golden and grown, outwitted by a freshly born god with zero life experience and a slight obsession with animal theft? It feels like a prank from a universe, or at least from whoever was writing down these stories on sun-baked scrolls in ancient Athens. Eventually, the trail leads Apollo to Mount Cyllene, a wild and scrubby place you could probably smell before you saw it. Dry pine needles crunch beneath his feet, and the scent of singed cow hair lingers suspiciously near the cave mouth. Apollo pauses, sniffing the air like a godly bloodhound. Inside, Maya stirs. She sees Apollo's shadow fall across the cave and immediately goes into not in my house mode. You stay out of her way. She's not in the mood for visitors, especially not angry, glowing ones. Apollo barges in, dramatic as ever, demanding answers. Maya blinks slowly, like someone who has absolutely not been monitoring her newborn for cattle-related activity. She gestures vaguely to Hermes, who is, once again, pretending to sleep like he's auditioning for the role of Most Innocent Infant 2025. Apollo pokes at Hermes. No response. He pokes harder. Hermes yawns, stretches a little, and, brace yourself, launches into full-on denial. Not just, I didn't do it, but, I don't even know what a cow is. He coos. He burbles. He gurgles some suspiciously well-formed syllables that sound a lot like legal jargon. This is the point where the story becomes less about theft and more about theater. Hermes plays the part of a clueless baby so convincingly that, for a moment, you almost believe him. His eyes go wide and watery, his lip trembles slightly, and he says without a trace of irony, that he's barely born. So clearly this is all a misunderstanding. Maybe the cows just walked away. Maybe Apollo misplaced them. Maybe cows are ghosts. Who's to say? Apollo, naturally, is not amused. The light around him sharpens. His sun god energy starts heating up the cave like an unwanted sauna. Maya steps in trying to de-escalate. Hermes sucks on his thumb like he's never told a lie in his life. And yet, this is important. Apollo doesn't just zap Hermes on the spot. Instead, he does what any frustrated older sibling might do. He drags him to their father. Cue Zeus. You're now following this bizarre procession up Mount Olympus. Apollo stomps. Hermes wiggles in his arms. He complains, kicks a bit, then goes limp. His acting is flawless. If there were an Oscar for divine baby fraud, he'd be clutching it in both chubby hands. Olympus, by the way, is not the gleaming white marbled fantasy you might picture. There's grandeur, sure, but also the smell of ambrosia leftovers and the constant bickering of deities who've had way too much power for way too long. You imagine Zeus in his throne room, bored out of his lightning-scorched mind, until this little drama arrives like an unexpected reality show. Zeus hears both sides. Apollo's indignant rant, Hermes's babbling defense, the smell of cooked cow fat still subtly clinging to the baby's fingers. And then something strange happens. Zeus laughs. That's right. The king of the gods, lord of the skies, grand patriarch of storm and thunder. He laughs like someone who just watched their toddler outwit a tax auditor. He finds the whole thing hilarious. And honestly, same. Historians still debate whether Zeus sided with Hermes out of favoritism or just sheer amusement. It's not every day your newborn son creates music, commits theft, and holds his own in a divine courtroom, all before learning how to stand. But the verdict isn't quite what Hermes expects. Zeus tells him to return the cows. No lightning bolts, no eternal punishment, just a sternish warning and a go make peace with your brother kind of vibe. And so, reluctantly, Hermes agrees. But not without a twist. Back at the cave, he picks up his lyre, the tortoise-shell instrument he made before the cow caper, and strums a few notes. It's music that catches in your chest, sweet and strange, like lullabies woven from moonlight and laughter. Apollo hears it and freezes. Because here's the kicker. Despite everything, Hermes wins him over. The music is that good. The moment the lyre's notes drift through the air, something shifts. Apollo, god of music himself, tilts his head like a golden retriever hearing jazz for the first time. His usual fire and fury soften, like a thundercloud that suddenly remembers it has someplace else to be. You can almost see the calculations behind his gleaming eyes. Yes, he stole my cows. Yes, he's an infant. Yes, he lied to my face. But, dang, this slaps. Hermes, smug in the way only a divine baby prodigy can be, continues to play. He plucks the strings with ridiculous finesse for someone who still gets burped after meals. The melody isn't just beautiful. It's weirdly hypnotic. If cows could understand music, they'd probably forgive him too. Apollo doesn't even interrupt. He just lets the song unfold, eyes half closed, swaying ever so slightly, like the god of sunlight is at his first indie concert. It's that moment when you're too impressed to stay mad. And this is where things really flip. Because instead of punishing Hermes, Apollo does something very ungodlike. He offers a trade. Give me the lyre, he says, voice low and steady, like someone negotiating with a toddler in a toy aisle. In return, I'll forget about the cows. There's a pause, a silence packed with tension and baby smugness. Hermes agrees, but only after confirming that the whole cow incident is officially forgiven. No take-backs. No grudges. No future zaps. You respect that level of contract awareness for someone who probably still thinks the moon is a snack. And just like that, Apollo ends up walking away from this whole embarrassing ordeal not only without his dignity fully intact, but holding a lyre made from tortoise shell and cow guts, handcrafted by the very baby who duped him. It's like catching a scammer and then hiring them for your band. Historians still argue whether this myth is a metaphor for the transfer of artistic power. Apollo, once the sole master of divine music, now shares that domain with Hermes, and all because of a trick. Some even suggest this marked a shift in how the Greeks viewed intelligence. Brute strength and golden perfection weren't everything anymore. Cunning had its place. Even baby-level cunning. And here's a quirky little aside that doesn't make it into most retellings. Apollo, proud sun god that he is, never quite mastered the lyre the way Hermes did. Sure, he played it. Sure, people praised him for it. But deep down, the music still had Hermes's fingerprints all over it. Figuratively and literally because, well, baby. But don't think Hermes lets it end there. Oh no. He returns the cows, sure. But not before inventing something new. Panpipes. That's right, the moment Apollo's back is turned, Hermes fiddles with some reeds, blows into them, and suddenly bam! Another instrument. The kid is a one-baby band. You trail him as he drifts through the meadows with a handful of reeds, humming to himself, turning soft wind into song. And this time, he doesn't even hide it. He shows Zeus, shows Apollo, even shows Maya, who at this point has stopped pretending she has any control over her child's artistic rampage. The music is sharper this time. Earthy. Less elegant than the lyre but wild and ancient, like something that belongs to mountain spirits and mischievous satyrs. Apollo raises an eyebrow. He already traded a divine pardon for one musical invention. What's this going to cost? Turns out, Hermes doesn't want to trade. He's just showing off. There's something gleefully chaotic about how he moves through the world now. Like he's figured out the cheat codes and can't resist pressing every button. He knows how far he can go. He's tasted divine leniency and decided, why not push it a little more? So, naturally he starts traveling. Not with permission, of course. He just goes. You follow him as he zigzags across the Greek landscape, leaving behind a trail of confused mortals, bewildered gods, and mildly traumatized livestock. At one point, he teaches a shepherd how to build the panpipes. Another time, he convinces a farmer that thunder is caused by angry goats doing sky cartwheels. He's not exactly lying, but he's not exactly helping either. The line between mischief and myth gets very blurry. Hermes doesn't flinch. He charms Hades with tales of sunlit fields and moonlit jokes. He laughs in the face of death, literally, and Hades, cold and serious, finds himself grinning. It's the start of a weird friendship. One that future myths will quietly depend on but rarely mention in detail. Hades might rule the dead, but Hermes learns how to move among them. Here's a quirky tidbit most people don't know. Hermes starts collecting trinkets from the dead. Not souls or bones or anything creepy. Just things left behind. A locket, a coin, a poem half finished. He keeps them in a pouch that never fills, like a scrapbook of half-lived lives. No one told him to. He just does it. By the time he returns to Olympus, the gods are starting to realize they've accidentally created something they can't quite control. Hermes isn't just a messenger. He's becoming a symbol. Of movement. Of transformation. Of the liminal spaces between light and shadow, birth and death, truth and prank. And like any new employee with too much energy and not enough supervision, Hermes starts innovating. He redesigns the divine messaging system. Scrolls are out. Sacred echoes are in. He invents a faster route through the clouds using wind patterns and goat trails. He even launches the godly equivalent of express shipping, but only if you pay in riddles or favors. One time, he delivers a message from Zeus to a mountain oracle in under 5 minutes. Flat. Another time, he accidentally starts a rumor war between 2 minor gods because he delivered their messages in the wrong order. That day ends with a thunderstorm full of love poetry and accidental snakes. He calls it a learning experience. You watch him scribble divine memos on leaves, carve notes into moonlight, whisper secrets into the wings of birds. Nothing is ever delivered the same way twice. He makes communication an art, and like all great artists, he's also just a little bit dangerous. Still, there's something deeply satisfying about watching the other gods adjust to him. Ares grumbles that his war plans keep getting poetic edits. Hera complains that her threats now arrive in rhyming couplets. Even Athena pauses one day to admit, grudgingly, that Hermes' system is efficient. Annoying, but efficient. And through it all, Hermes grows, not just in power, but in understanding. He begins to grasp that he's not just zipping between places. He's connecting them. The messenger doesn't just carry words. He creates meaning by choosing what to say, how to say it, and when to let silence speak instead. He's no longer a baby with a turtle-turned ukulele. He's something else now. A mover. A shaper. A thread that ties Olympus to the world below and beyond. And the best part? He still snacks constantly, steals occasionally, and grins like a kid who definitely touched the shiny red button, even when you told him not to. So there you are, tagging along with Hermes again. He's practically vibrating with divine restlessness, zooming from Olympus to Earth and back in a blink. You're honestly just trying not to trip on your own sandals. His new title as Messenger of the Gods hasn't made him any less chaotic, just better dressed and slightly more accountable. Emphasis on slightly. Tonight, he decides he's ready for a little side quest. Not the kind that involves battling monsters or delivering thunderbolts. No, Hermes wants to try something really absurd. He's going to herd cows. Not just any cows. Apollo's cows. Yes, the same Apollo who literally shines with holy light and plays music so good it makes flowers bloom. That Apollo. Why? Well, that's Hermes' logic. He doesn't explain it. He just declares it. I think I'll try cattle herding, he says, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. Then he snaps his fingers, and you're suddenly ankle-deep in a grassy field in Thessaly. And the cows? They look judgmental. Big, glossy, divine-eyed. Like they know exactly who owns them and exactly how much trouble you're about to be in. Here's the mainstream historical fact. Apollo's sacred cattle were part of ancient Greek religious life, symbolic of wealth, sacrifice, and divine favor. Herds dedicated to Apollo were kept and cared for in special areas, sometimes linked to temples, and often guarded very seriously. Which makes Hermes' next move even more questionable. He walks right up to one of the cows, let's call her Bessie, and whispers something to her. It's probably a bad pun. She low moos, unimpressed. But Hermes has a plan. A deeply Hermes plan. He pulls out a bundle of sandals. Not for himself, for the cows. Yes. He ties them onto their hooves backward. The goal? Confuse any future trackers. If anyone comes looking, the hoof prints will lead the wrong direction. And because he can't resist a flourish, he guides them not in a straight path, but in a spiral, then a zigzag, then briefly through someone's herb garden. The journey is the destination, he says, while a very confused mortal chef watches his oregano get trampled by holy livestock. This is your quirky tidbit. In some ancient fringe versions of the myth, Hermes not only led the cows away but also taught them a short dance, something between a conga line and a hoof stomp. Totally unverifiable, but frankly, it feels on brand. Now here's the twist. While he's herding, Hermes gets deeply into the role. He starts naming them. Gives them little nicknames. One cow is Blossom, another Thunder Tummy, and the smallest one who keeps licking his elbow is Bean. He even starts composing cow-related songs. Ode to a Moo is probably not going to win any awards, but it's catchy. He croons as they march across the hills, their divine bells clinking like wind chimes. The sun's dipping low, the breeze is gentle, and you almost forget you're basically mid-theft. Until, of course, Hermes loses control of the herd. It begins subtly. One cow wanders off. Hermes whistles. Nothing. Another trots sideways. Suddenly, it's chaos. Cows everywhere. Mooing in stereo. Hermes running in circles, hair flapping, yelling, "Bean, come back!" You've never seen divine livestock stampede before. It's majestic and completely ridiculous. They scatter into the night, a dozen glowing bovines lighting up the hills like furry lanterns. And here's where the scholarly debate kicks in. Did Hermes intend to lose control? Some ancient sources suggest he staged the whole disaster just to get Apollo's attention. Others say he genuinely thought he could herd them. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth shows divine innocence, or just garden variety overconfidence. Either way, Apollo definitely notices. He wakes up the next morning, yawns, stretches, and does a quick cattle count. 2, 4, 7, wait. 17 short. His golden brow furrows. He squints into the distance and mutters something about mortal incompetence. But it's not mortals. He knows that. It smells divine. Tricky. He starts following the hoof prints. Backward. Of course. But even that doesn't stop him. He's a sun god. Not an idiot. He burns away the illusions, follows the scent of ambrosia and, oddly, roasted marshmallows. He finds Hermes sitting in a clearing. Not hiding. Not running. Just whistling. Around him, the cows are snoozing, covered in flower crowns and soft music. Hermes looks up, all innocent eyes and sticky fingers. "Oh hey, I found your cows." "You're welcome." Apollo stares. Just stares. The air is tense. You brace for lightning, fire, maybe a harp duel. But instead, Apollo does something unexpected. He laughs. Like actually laughs. Because really, what else can you do? Your sacred herd's been turned into a bovine boy band and the culprit is a child with grass in his hair. Apollo sighs and sits down. "Fine," he says. "But you owe me." And here, in this moment, sunset, cows and two gods of absurd talent, you witness a strange truce begin. It's not friendship, not yet. But it's something. Hermes, sensing the opportunity, reaches into his pouch. He pulls out the lyre. Not the one made from his imagination. The real one. Polished, tuned, and glowing faintly with divine mischief. "Want to hear a song about your cows?" he asks. Apollo narrows his eyes. Then slowly nods. Hermes begins to play.